Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, as we take a look at the satellite and lightning picture here early on this Tuesday morning, we've got several areas of thunderstorms across the lower 48 and across the Corn Belt, the first of which associated with an organized trough, an organized area of low pressure across the Pacific Northwest, is kicking off some rounds of thunderstorms for anywhere from the Dakotas into the Canadian Prairie, and that's going to continue for the next several days. We've also got a stalled out boundary kind of draped across portions of the central Corn Belt down into the mid-south. We've got clusters of thunderstorms developing along that as well, and that's also going to continue for the next 24 to 48 hours. So as we take a look at the radar picture, again, several clusters of thunderstorms. We've got this area here across Montana, parts of the Dakotas. We've got clusters of thunderstorms decaying here across northern Wisconsin into the UP of Michigan. We've also got these organized clusters of thunderstorms down across the mid-Mississippi Valley. Parts of Missouri and southern Illinois, western Illinois, have been seeing these thunderstorms going all the way back to last evening, kind of parked over the exact same area. As we look at temperatures across this region, warm and muggy for just about everyone in the Corn Belt. Temperatures already in the mid to upper 70s from the Dakotas down into portions of the Central Plains. And then as you head east from there, low to mid 70s as we get started in the central Corn Belt. And then the cool spot, lower Michigan into northeastern Ohio, where it's even in the mid to lower 60s there. So not cool by any stretch of the imagination. So a warm and humid pattern across the Corn Belt. Where are we headed over the next several days? Well, before we do that, let's look at the last 3 days. Total precipitation here. You know, we talked about there being big winners, big losers here with this precipitation. The heaviest rain over the last 3 days falling across portions of Minnesota and Wisconsin with some severe thunderstorms across that region Saturday evening and Saturday night. And then as you head down towards portions of the Ohio River Valley into the Mid-South, locally heavy rainfall here across parts of southern Illinois, southern Indiana down into Kentucky and Tennessee. Elsewhere, as we take the drawings off there, very hit or miss. Again, some people not seeing any precipitation at all. Others seeing, brief downpours from some of these thunderstorms, picking up a quick half an inch to maybe an inch. But very localized rainfall here with these disorganized, erratically moving thunderstorm clusters that are more frustrating than anything, it seems like. So what happens as we head through the next few days? Well, we're going to continue to see the organized thunderstorm activity across the Canadian Prairie into the northern plains. We're also going to continue to see this disorganized thunderstorm activity along that stalled out frontal boundary in parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley down into the mid-south. We'll put this into action here with the high-resolution NAM model, bringing it all the way back to Tuesday morning here. As we head into Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening, again, watching for thunderstorms to erupt associated with that main trough across the Dakotas into parts of the Central Plains, anywhere from North Dakota into eastern South Dakota and central and eastern Nebraska. Looking for that widespread thunderstorm activity to develop here this afternoon and evening. And then as we head off to the south and to the east, we'll continue to watch this disorganized thunderstorm activity continue to kind of spin and meander away here across parts of Missouri, Illinois, down into Kentucky and Tennessee, maybe even southwestern Indiana, continuing to pick up on some of that as well. Now, as we head into the overnight, into the day tomorrow, it looks like we're going to see some sort of squall line or MCS developing here, where it's almost just like the outflow is propagating the system forward here. It's not really associated with a well-defined shortwave, but we'll continue to see this kind of right along that frontal boundary, the one that's kicking off the thunderstorm activity today and tonight across this region. We'll see those thunderstorms develop across the high plains here, parts of eastern South Dakota and eastern Nebraska this afternoon and evening. And then we'll watch that cluster of storms kind of ride that stalled out boundary during the overnight into the early part of the day on Wednesday. You can see this here. This is midnight on Wednesday now, taking it into about sunrise on Wednesday, and then into midday Wednesday, Wednesday afternoon, and Wednesday evening. Now, this could be one more day here where we see kind of disorganized pop-up thunderstorm activity associated with that frontal boundary across this region, this mid-Mississippi into the mid-south region that we've been talking about. But that is just about it as we head into a pattern that's going to keep the heat and humidity locked into place across the region, but really bring the organized thunderstorm activity to a close over the next 7 to 10 days. So as we get through the next 3, we do have to talk about at least low risks for severe weather, the highest of which is going to be today, along with that more organized storm system off to the north. Parts of North Dakota down into central and eastern Nebraska could see some severe storms developing as we get into the afternoon and evening, perhaps developing into, again, that MCS that begins to kind of propagate off to the south and to the east during the overnight into Wednesday morning. As we get into Wednesday, this is going to be the top right graphic over here. Here's our stalled out boundary, disorganized thunderstorm activity along that. We'll continue to keep strong jet stream flow associated with this Pacific Northwest trough across the northern plains into the upper Great Lakes, that could keep at least a marginal risk for severe storms in the forecast here as we head all the way into Thursday, and then potentially beyond. We will kind of keep this area active even as we shut things down across a bigger chunk of the Corn Belt heading into the end of the week, potentially early next week. So straight from the high-resolution NAM model, total accumulated precipitation as we head through midday on Thursday. Again, locally heavy rainfall across that frontal boundary from parts of the Missouri and Illinois border down into parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, with more disorganized activity kind of expanded beyond that as you head up to maybe central Illinois, getting into central and northern Indiana. And then here is the thunderstorm activity across the northern plains associated with this upper level trough. So these are the two active areas as we head through the next 3 days. But then as we take another look at this with the NOAA weather forecast, so this was the raw model output. This is one that's been kind of massaged by our meteorologist friends at the National Weather Service. But you see the two corridors, the northern plains associated with that upper level trough, the disorganized thunderstorm activity along that stalled frontal boundary across parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley down into Kentucky and Tennessee. These are your two active areas over the next 3 days, but as we head into the days 4 through 10 time frame, this is going to be the first, 7-8 days of July, trending much cooler, much cooler, don't I wish, much drier across the Corn Belt here from the southern plains all the way into the central and eastern Corn Belt. The one area that does stay active, again, is going to be the northern plains into parts of the upper Great Lakes, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, into the UP of Michigan. Again, as we keep jet stream flow kind of locked in across this area. As you head off to the south, we'll see moisture coming up and around from the Gulf of Mexico, so we will keep some thunderstorm activity ongoing across portions of the deep south here, and maybe at times bringing some of that into the mid-south, Kentucky and Tennessee. But a very dry pattern here shaping up, a very hot and dry pattern across the midsection of the Corn Belt into the central and eastern Corn Belt. And that, of course, a pattern like this, Eric's been talking about it. He hit on this well in our Monday morning ag forecast video, this trough across the Pacific Northwest, and then a big ridge kind of amplified here across the Great Lakes, anchored across the Great Lakes, and that is what allows, again, the heat and the humidity to expand across this region. And that's what's also going to take the organized thunderstorm activity and, where the jet stream winds, the strong jet stream winds are, that too is where our more organized thunderstorm activity is going to be located. So we'll be keeping that across the northern plains into the Canadian Prairie as we head into the first week of July. So a more detailed look at this, we're looking at 500 millibar height and vorticity. And again, here's our big trough to the west. Here is the we would call these little upper level short waves, little mesoscale convective vortices, MCVs across that stalled out frontal boundary, little kind of compact systems that kind of meander around. So that's what we're dealing with across this region over the next couple of days. That's what's kicking off these rounds of storms. Here's our upper level trough. We've got short waves kind of pinwheeling around each other. We call it the Fujiwara effect here across the Pacific Northwest and the Canadian Prairie, and that's what keeps it very active across this region. But the reason I want to show this is because we end this little parade here with the little short waves meandering around that frontal boundary and move into full-on ridge, which is going to shut things down across the Corn Belt. Again, leading to a very hot, dry pattern. I'm kind of hitting this with multiple different maps here, different ways to kind of show the same thing. And we'll do this one more time with the precipitation forecast from the European model, bringing it back to Tuesday morning. Let's get this back to the present time. Watching for these thunderstorm clusters to flare up across parts of the Dakotas down into central and eastern Nebraska as we head into the afternoon and evening hours today. Also watching for those thunderstorm clusters across parts of Missouri, Illinois, down into Kentucky and Tennessee. As we head into the day tomorrow, we'll watch for this MCS, this potential line of thunderstorms to ride along that frontal boundary into parts of Iowa, Missouri, eventually down into Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee during the morning, midday, and then afternoon hours on Wednesday, producing potentially some locally heavy rainfall and maybe some gusty winds as well as it makes its way across the area. But then as we get into Wednesday night and Thursday, we're going to start to shut things down across that region. The frontal boundary that was stalled across the midsection of the Corn Belt into the Mid-South is no more. And we're into now, this is Friday, getting into Saturday. This is where we're going to head into a pattern here that keeps the thunderstorms going across the high plains into the northern plains, the upper Great Lakes, but really shuts things down here from the central plains into the midsection of the Corn Belt, the Great Lakes, and the eastern Corn Belt with heat and humidity building. So entering a period here, we're going to continue to rapidly accumulate those GDUs, but we will be doing some quick drying across the region as well, which is of course bad news for those who needed rain over the last week and have not yet received that. So 1 inch through Thursday, we're looking at the European Ensemble forecast, the probability of an inch or more of rain accumulating between now and Thursday evening. Again, you see the activity across the northern plains into the Canadian prairie. And then this is our stalled out frontal boundary here. We've got, 2.5 more days here to try and pick up some precipitation. Some of you may be done with that at this point. Others still needing to get a little bit of a drink before we head into a much drier pattern across the midsection of the Corn Belt. Here's the day 4 through 10 forecast from the European Ensemble, keeping thunderstorm activity at times in place across the Dakotas into the upper Great Lakes, drying out big time across the central and eastern Corn Belt as we head into the first 10 to 15 days of July. At the same time, that amplified ridge across the Great Lakes, that's going to allow that heat to linger across the region, keeping dew points in the 60s and 70s, really just a miserable pattern across the Corn Belt as we head into the first 10 days of July. Where does the relief come from? Well, we're going to be having to watch this ridge as it's, the axis of that through the Central Plains into the Corn Belt, or the Central Plains into the Great Lakes. That's what keeps it hot and dry across the region. Go back and watch Eric's video yesterday, but we'll be watching the Pacific Northwest trough. We'll also be watching this trough across the northern Atlantic to see if we can get this ridge to begin to retrograde back to the northwest. And we would need to see something like what the European Ensemble is offering up here as we head into maybe July 13th and 14th, where instead of having the ridge axis kind of running from the southern plains into the Great Lakes, we've now kind of retrograded. We have it more the axis across the Intermountain West into Western Canada. This would set us up with northwest flow. This allows those thunderstorm clusters erupting across the Dakotas then to kind of travel up and around the periphery of that ridge down into the central Corn Belt, into the eastern Corn Belt. So this is what we'll be watching for a transition back to as we head into the middle part of July, if we're going to see any sort of relief from this upcoming hot and dry pattern across the Corn Belt. So let's go ahead and take a look at the probability of temperatures above 90 degrees as we head into, again, the first 5 to 10 days of July. I'm just quickly shuffling through this, just showing very high probabilities as we head into, again, the first 5, 10, maybe 15 days of July. Good probability for quite a few 90-degree days across this region. Dew points are going to continue to be very moist, again, with the lack of a good cold front to come through here and, clear out the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to be keeping dew points in the 60s and 70s across the Corn Belt as we head into the first 10 days of July as well. So just to wrap it up, your high temperatures for the next 5 days, again, 80s and 90s for just about everyone. Cloud cover and precipitation keeping things a little bit cooler across that corridor, but that begins to fade as we head into the end of the week. That ridge begins to amplify across the southern plains into the Great Lakes, and we become hot and dry for just about everyone, again, except for the northern plains, which will continue to see that scattered thunderstorm activity. Here's your Thursday highs. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, not much change there. Highs in the upper 80s, lower 90s. Hot, muggy, dry as far as precipitation goes as we head into the first 10 days of July.